Hello, it's Tabitha here, and it's time for another Wednesday art snack. Wednesday art snack. All right. So last week we talked about inventorying your paints. So just basically taking all of the paints you had and doing a little swatch of each and mix a little white in so you can see how it it tints down and basically know what you've got and know the difference between for instance these three blues, which might look very similar in the tube, but once you get them on the paper they've changed a little bit, and once you start adding white you can really see the difference. So that is the first step to do. And if you haven't done this, that step, you can go back and do that one later. But it's a really helpful thing to do. And we also talked about warm and cool shades of each color. I should say warm and cool hues of each color. And I will talk more on that another time, but I just want you to be aware that there are warm and cool blues, reds, and yellows and other colors. So today what we're going to do is we're going to do a color mixing chart so you can mix your colors together and see what you've got. So here's one I did with some very sloppy color wheels. This is basically what we're after. Forget the color wheels for now. We're after this chart. And I have one started here, or the beginnings of one. Now you can do this with as many or as few colors as you like. And if you want to make your lines a little more straight than mine, you can. But basically you need to start with a grid. So I've got, I'm starting with three different yellows, three different reds, and three different blues. So I've got 9 squares this way and 9 squares that way. So if you do 2 reds, 2 blues, and 2 yellows, you'll just need 2, 4, 6. You'll need 6 squares in each direction. If you do 4 of each primary color, you'll need 12. You get the picture. And you'll also need a bigger sheet of paper. So if you wanted to, you can do this on both sides of your book, your journal, or you could even do it on a big piece of poster board, like this one. Although this isn't the color mixing chart. But yeah, this is just a, I don't know how big that is, 16 by 20 maybe, piece of poster board. And it's kind of nice to have that. You can put it up on your wall. All right, so here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write all the names of the colors across the top and down the edge. Or you can do the bottom and the other edge, doesn't matter. So this is Naphthol Crimson. All right, so I'm writing it in that first box. I'm going to write it in the first box on the side too. This is almost like multiplication tables. NAPHTHOL Crimson, which is a really warm crimson. Crimson's usually much cooler than that. And then my next red I'm using here is alizarin crimson. So I don't have a rhyme or reason for the colors I picked. I just picked 3 reds, 3 yellows, 3 blues. You know, if you want to do all of your paints, you can, or if you just want to pick a few to try out, you can do that. It's up to you. Alizarin. And I get tired of writing, so I'm going to start abbreviating. And the third red I've got here is deep magenta. Now you'll see it's a little purpley, but it is so great for mixing. Magenta makes some really beautiful colors. So it doesn't really matter which colors you try. I mean, you could even do secondary colors if you want, but it's good to start with the primaries. Moving on to the blues, we have cobalt, brilliant blue, ultramarine, I believe. Oh, there it is, ultramarine. Cadmium yellow medium. And this is a really great way to get to know your colors, to know what you've got. The more you do this, the better. You won't even have to, read the colors. You can just grab for them and you'll know what they are. And this is a great exercise for new painters, but also if you've been painting a while, this is great for you to do too. Art is a practice. Painting is a practice. I'm always learning. Everyone's always learning. I've been painting for over 20 years and I still find this a helpful exercise. And look at that. I did not make enough spaces here. So I have to squeeze it in at the bottom. Or I could just do 2 yellows, but I don't want to. Naples. Ooh. Okay, so here's how we do this. And there's probably a really super organized way to do this that I don't know about, but I'm an artist, not a mathematician. So talking about organized brain, not quite so organized. I'm just going to start with the colors I have closest to the top left. So we're going to start with the Naphthol Crimson. And I'm just going to squeeze some onto my palette here. Now, it's really good for you to use, if you're using paper like I am, if you can use something shiny, not porous, because regular paper plates, it's just going to suck the moisture out and you end up with half of your paint being still on the plate. Shiny is better. Alizarin Crimson. Now, the key to this is remembering which you've got where. So if you don't know your colors all that well, while you're doing this, you might want to make notes. Nat Crim. Aliz Crim. Just so you don't get mixed up. And you might not need to do that. Magenta. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my palette knife here, and I'm using this one because I like how broad that edge is. It makes it easy to lay these colors in. So Naphthol Crimson, where Naphthol meets Naphthol, I'm putting the Naphthol. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right. And I'm making that kind of thick. And I'm doing this with a palette knife instead of a brush so that I don't have to keep washing the brush off. Palette knife I can just wipe off. Alizarin, where alizarin meets alizarin. I'm just going to lay that in there, and I'm laying it in there pretty thick. Now, if you want to, you could scrape a little bit off so you can see what the color looks like without when it's thinned down, but I don't really like that. So, and magenta goes where magenta meets magenta. So these hues are really quite close, aren't they? This is a little more purple, which makes it a little cooler. All right, so next, I'm actually going to mix the Naphthol Crimson with the alizarin Crimson. So this is where things start to get messy. You might need a couple different palettes for this, or a really big sheet of paper, because we're going to have lots of piles of paint. So I'm going to take a little bit of the the alizarin and scooch it over there. And every time my palette knife touches paint, I'm going to wipe it off. And I'm going to get some Naphthol Crimson. Now, there's not a right or wrong way to do this. Because depending on how much of each color you use, you're going to get a different color. This is an experiment. Think of yourself as an art scientist while you're doing this. So when you mix this up, we are mixing a warm red with a cool red. Let's see how this looks. So this is alizarin and Naphthol. Not bad. Now, each one of these colors, the blends, are going to be on here twice. So you have an opportunity to mix them in two different ways. So this one, maybe I'll go heavier on the alizarin and just a little bit of the Naphthol. You can get two different colors. Yeah, very nice. Now magenta and Naphthol. Now, this is not quite as interesting at this point than when you get into the different colors. But it is interesting. Interesting enough. So this was magenta and Naphthol Crimson, magenta and crimson. And you can see how similar those colors are. They're slightly different, slightly different. This time I'll go heavier on the magenta, I think. And every time you do something like this, you gain experience and knowledge, and it gets easier next time. Naphthol and magenta again. So it's easy to get confused here. So make sure you're paying attention. And it really is smart to write the names of the colors down. Even for me, I know the colors and it's still smart. So this is kind of an orangey, a nice deep reddish orange. I really like that. And you could have your extra paint canvas handy too. And wipe your palette knife on that. Again, this is some sort of a future painting. We don't know what it's going to be. All right, magenta alizarin. This is not going to be very different at all because these colors are so similar. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even going to change that one. I'm just going to lay that in just like that. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the entire chart with you because you get the idea, I'm sure. But I am going to mix a few more just so you see. So this one is cadmium yellow medium. So I'm just going to put some of that Cadmium yellow meets cadmium yellow. And I am curious to see what I'm going to get with this alizarin. I think it's going to be quite nice. Now, when you're mixing a dark color and a light color, first of all, I'm going to scooch some of this yellow over so that I can leave some of it just yellow. But when you're mixing a dark color and a light color, you want to go easy on that dark color because it's much stronger. And see, I just put a little tiny bit in with a lot of yellow and it's still really taking over things. Oh, that's orangey, very pretty. Okay, so cadmium, yellow, and alizarin crimson. So you could even, if you were really scientific about this, you can even have a system where you put more of, oh, never mind. That is way too confusing. Don't worry about it. Just have fun. Just have fun mixing colors. All right, so for this next mix, I'm going to leave this and just add more yellow to it. And you have to make sure it's really mixed up. So stir it around and wipe off your palette knife in it and scrape it and then scoop it up. So this is cadmium and alizarin. So cadmium and alizarin. Yeah, it gets a little confusing if you're not paying enough attention. Yeah, so just for comparison, we can get that or that and a whole different range of oranges in between. Delicious. And you will go through more yellow than anything else while doing this. So I'm going to scooch some yellow up towards this Naphthol crimson. And there's that mix. Wipe some of that off. And once again, I used too much Naphthol, not enough yellow. So I'm going to go for a lighter value here by adding more yellow. All right, so Naphthol and cadmium. Naphthol and cadmium. And that's it. That's pretty much this exercise. You're just going to go through all of the colors that you pulled out and get them all down here. And it's really kind of a really fun, interesting exercise. So that is brilliant blue. So where brilliant blue meets brilliant blue, we're just going to put the straight from the tube hue right there. And as you're doing this, once again, look to see what you think is cool and what's warm. I mean, clearly these are warm colors, but some of these are cool reds and some of them are warm reds. And I'm going to mix some brilliant blue with some magenta. So I'm going to scoop some of this towards the magenta. And just use a little magenta with a bunch of blue because the magenta is got more pigment. It's really a pigment issue, pigment load, they call it. And I really didn't get much in there. Oops. So you can really see how if you just want to deepen up your brilliant blue a little bit, add a little magenta. But it's not enough for me to feel like I got a good color mix. So I'm going to add some more in there. And I didn't wipe off my palette knife, and I got some magenta or some blue in my magenta. Always wipe off that palette knife. There we go. Ooh, that's pretty. Okay, brilliant blue and magenta. Still not incredibly far off, but just a little deeper. I'm going to go heavier on the magenta. Let's see. Magenta, brilliant blue, magenta. It's almost like a bright sky getting darker. So think about where you would use these colors if you were painting a landscape or a cityscape or anything, seascape. I'm going to try some brilliant blue with some cadmium yellow. I think I'm going to love this green. Oh, yes, that's a beautiful green. So after a while, you learn, you just know what colors will work well together. Okay, brilliant blue and cadmium yellow. And like I said in that last video, that last Wednesday art snack that I did, different brands have different color names sometimes. So if I tell you that I love brilliant blue with cadmium yellow and you go to do it, it might come out different because your brilliant blue might be a different brand and a different shade. So that's just the way it works sometimes. And I'm going to go a little bit lighter on this next one. See, I keep trying to end this video because I already said you get the point, you know what you're doing, but it's so hard to stop because it's really fun to do. So brilliant blue and cadmium yellow. Oh, so here's something that might happen to you. I put that green in the wrong spot. That should have been right here. Or right here. So that happens from time to time. That's why I say you really need to focus while you're doing this. And if that happens, you could try a couple different things. You could scrape it off if you can. but you're still going to have some residue behind here. So what I suggest is just painting, taking some white paint and making that box white again. That way you have the right color mix when you go back over it. So I'm just going to finger paint a little bit of white in there, because that's how I roll. All right. Oh, and before I go, one more combination. Take this Napthal Crimson and some Brilliant Blue, and let's see what happens. Purples are notoriously difficult to mix. And red, in theory, in color theory, make purple, but it really depends on the undertones in the paint that you're using, whether you have warm or cool undertones. So that is a really muddy purple. And this is great to know. So Brilliant Blue and Napthal Crimson. Yeah, I usually stay away from warm reds when I'm mixing purples. But this color could be useful someplace. It might be a color you want, even though it's not a bright purple. So this color chart, one of the reasons we do it to learn about color mixing, but we also do it so that you have a chart to come back to. When you need a purple, you can come and you say, what were those colors I mixed? Yes, it was ultramarine and magenta, which I haven't mixed, but whoops. Let's see what happens, because yep, beautiful, 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 beautiful. Ultramarine and magenta. Look how gorgeous that is. Oops. And you can always scrape a little bit, like I said earlier, but with these darker colors, sometimes it really helps to scrape so you can see some of the paper coming through, so you can see what color you've got. Or you can even take a bit of white and mix it in there. So let's add a little bit more magenta into that mix that I already have. Now this is where it starts getting murky, right? Because I could accidentally get some blue in there or some red, or that old blue mix and red mix, and I don't want that. So it's good just to have more paper or plates or whatever you're using, another palette on the ready. Okay, magenta, ultramarine. Oh, luscious, beautiful, beautiful purple. Okay, that's it. That's all I got for you. I'm stopping because this video went way longer than I expected or wanted it to. Have fun with it. If you are in the Paint Through network, if that's where you're watching this, please post your color chart so we can see it. And if you're watching it someplace else, head on over to www.paintthrough.com and join us over there. It's free. It is a free site for tips, tutorials, and art community. So that's it. Have fun. I'll see you next week. Bye.